Hi, my name is James Orvis, and in this video, this third and final one, we're going to look at another two sequences from the Arptic pack, which is a new preset pack from Audiotent. And what we're going to do is, for this one, I've got two presets that I've got a lot of modulation going on as well, like this pad, for instance, and this sequence as well. There's some really cool little tricks in there. So these two are good little lessons as well, ones to go through to see what you could do with the sequencer in terms of not just sending it to an oscillator, you can send it to like these filters, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Maybe start with that. So this first one's called Amazon. It's number 64 in the preset pack. And instead of starting with the oscillators again, I feel like it's best to start with the sequencer for this. I'm going to look at this section here. So I'm just going to play with it first, and then I'll talk about it. So there's like this really nice kind of like drumming style rhythm going on there. And a big key part of it is this bus fin here. So like in one of the other videos when we talked about the roadblock sequence in the last video, I mentioned that you're able to use the buses here to send different clock frequencies out. So one of them's a different speed. And that's what's been done here. So these settings that have been set up here with the tempos, one of them is a faster speed, one of them's a lower speed. And then you've got this skip or reset function here, or it can be used as like a rest. And so you can see that it like kind of blocks it if you let it run. It's kind of like a way to do like a polyrhythm type thing. So you've got 7 notes going, so it never kind of reaches the end. So if you play this over a drum beat, it'll keep rotating around and it'll sound different every time. Really, really cool little preset. So with these top two buses, like I said, they've got different speeds going out of them. And you can see here that we're sending the top line to this, and the other, the bus 2s go into this one here. So normally keyboard CV would get sent into this, and VCO2 would get sent into this. So forget about those little orange tags. What we're doing is sending gate bus 1 there and gate bus 2 there. So if I bring them down, these are controlling the filter. The filter cutoff, and you've got ADSR in the middle. So that's the middle one. So that's the first bit of control. So we've got, with each hit, we've got some control coming from the ADSR. So there's our first bit, and then these second ones, if I bring them up, you've got this first rhythm here coming from bus 1. And this one coming from bus 2, so you can combine them. And then with the third one as well, you can get a really good combination going with them. So I'm just going to reset that quickly. So yeah, the way that's been set up is that you've got this really nice pattern coming from the sequencer using the cutoff. You control it using the ADSR up there. So the ADSR is very simple to the other patch. You've got start and stop and reset going into the gate for the ADSR, and then you've also got clock out going to it as well. Quantized there, again, this time it's going to oscillator 2 and oscillator 3. So it's changing the pitch of those. Only oscillator 2 and oscillator 3 is audible, and then we're getting some frequency modulation stuff going on from VCO1. So we can bring up VCO1. And you can hear that there's no pitch movement going on there. So this is kind of a silent oscillator, just being used as frequency modulation. So let's start by looking at the oscillators now. So we'll just work on oscillator 2. Just bring that up a little bit so we can hear it. So oscillator 2, we've got a sine wave coming out instead of the standard one, which is a pulse wave. So we've got the sine wave coming out. We've got a bit of detuning going on there, and it's set up to the highest octave. And on the frequency modulation bit, we've got noise generator coming from here. So the white noise is being used as a frequency modulation sent into this bit, so it's overriding that VCO1. And actually, I've actually messed up a little bit here. So basically, I thought VCO1 was being used as frequency modulation, which it says there, VCO1, but it's not. It's been overridden by white noise. So forget what I said earlier. So white noise is modulating this. So basically, it's causing some randomization in the pitch, and at very low setting, you get a really nice analog, unstable style oscillator going on there, which is quite cool. You could very well send that again to Oscillator 2 as well, and do it the same on there. So I'm just going to reset it, just to make sure I've got everything running right. So yeah, we've got VCO2 going in all the way, full volume, and then we're blending it in with VCO3. Which is really nice, interesting oscillator sound here. So we're sending in a pulse width, and then what we're doing is we're having some frequency modulation. So VCO2 and VCO2, sorry. We've got two different waveforms at the bottom of here. So one of them's doing FM on this. So it's using like a sine wave at the bottom. And then this one is like a sawtooth. And that's going to pulse width modulation. So pulse width modulation is this guy here. So it's creating some changes in the tonality. I'll just reset them. And let's bring it back up again. So instead of it being quite tonal and in key, you get this kind of drum sound from it. And obviously the two combined, you get this. So it's kind of like a drum sound really, this one. And then if you bring up a noise generator, so the noise oscillator is modulating this, but it's also going into the VCF as well. Just to give it more kind of drum quality really, an organic sound. So yeah, they're the oscillators, two oscillators working together plus the noise generator, and a bunch of frequency modulation stuff going on. And then we have got this bit, which we talked about earlier. So you've got that the rhythm and the movement coming from the ADSR and the sequencer. And we've got, moving on to this bit, we've got a little bit of reverb coming through. So the spring reverb. Again, just to give it that like raw, dusty kind of vibe. And then we've got delay as well. So what's cool is the delay is actually adding more rhythm to it as well. It's adding more layers of rhythm. So what's cool about this is like there's tons of like little layers of just movement and rhythm to create the sound. That's pretty much it for that kind of section. There's nothing really going on down here. The sequencer, like I said, we've got a sequence running, and that's all going to these bits at the top. And then on the bottom, the keyboard section, nothing really set up here. The mod wheel's getting sent to... Oh yeah, so if we bring up the mod wheel, I don't know if this has been utilized, but let me just have a look. I mean, you could bring that up. It creates a little bit of dissonance in the tonalities, kind of shifts a little bit when you bring up the mod wheel. So that's pretty much it for this patch. And what I would play around with is everything, really. I'd play around with the feedback on this, bring that up with the dry and wet. Obviously, the filter's a big one. And the resonance. Oh yeah, another key thing as well is the filter itself. We're actually using the notch mode again. Notch frequency all the way up with the resonance, and that creates that really nice kind of tone that sweeps through when you move it. And yeah, nothing I would play around with is just the oscillators as well. Like I would play around with the blends, and I would play around with the frequency modulation stuff. So it can become quite an experimental sound in that sense that you could automate the settings on this synth. Start with a basic patch, and as the track progresses, you could start to open it up and get really crazy with it. So that's quite cool. Let's move on to the next one, which is this pad. Really nice phasery sound. There's a lot of movement in it as well. So let's start with this one. Let's have a quick look. There's a few bits going on here. Maybe let's start at the bottom. Actually, let's start with the oscillators. So the oscillators, I'm going to open up this filter all the way. I'm going to turn down the resonance. Let me just see where we're at. Yeah, let's start with the oscillators then. So basically on the oscillator makeup, we've got VCO1, which is this one. We've got a sawtooth wave there. VCO2, we've got another saw wave. And VCO3, we have got the standard wave coming through, which is... I think it's sawtooth, that one. Yeah, sawtooth again. So we've got a blend of these three oscillators. There's no frequency modulation going on the oscillators this time, but we do have some detuning between oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. So it's two saw waves, both at the same octaves. And this one is pushed out. So you can make it really thick and detuned using that there. So yeah, that's it for those oscillators. And then the third one, we've got a blend of this one coming through as well. So this one's also a saw wave, and again, detuned to the left. So we've got three oscillators there, all detuned really nicely. So if I bring them all in, not as cool, whereas when you open it right up, really thick phasery sound going on there. So they're the oscillators, and then next we'll move on to the filter. So this filter... we've got it set to low pass 12, so it still lets some of the high frequencies through, a little bit of resonance, and set quite low, but you can obviously bring this in. So you can play around with that, and also I think there's some modulation going on the control of it as well. So you can hear it kind of like moving in and out as well. And let's take a look at that and find out what's doing that. So basically we've got velocity. Velocity from the keyboard is going into this one here. So if I play this, let me have a look at my patch. If I bring the velocity all the way down, so you can basically control the frequency of the cutoff by velocity. So I mean, if you wish to, you can disconnect that if you don't want that to happen. If you just want it to be the same filter readout every time on every note, you could just remove that. So then we've got that going, and then we've got a bit of ADSR coming through. So this is where that kind of movement happens. So this ADSR here, you can see the attack times all the way up. If you bring it all the way up, you get this. Like this gradual opening of the sound as well. So sustain and decay is quite up a lot, and also a bit of release as well. Whoops, 1 second, let me just press this one. So you can hear that release happening there when we stop the note. Doesn't happen when I press play and stop on the keyboard. Ableton, for some reason with this synth, cuts the sound off, but if I just press it and let go, it carries on. So that's the release coming through there. So there's the control of the filter. And next we're going to take a look at the this section and this section as well, because there's a lot going on here. So first let's look at this guy. And we've talked about this before, so this is like creates wave shapes, like LFO shapes. And this is the basic LFO here. And what's happening is this wave's been created, and then it's basically getting sent out on here at a certain rate, so you can change the rate there. And then that LFO is being sent back in again on itself, so it's creating this kind of weird shape going on here. So let's have a look to where this is going to. So we've got two outs, one of them's going to this line here, voltage processor, so it's going in on 1 and in on 3. And then it's worth looking at where this is taking processes from and then where it's going after. So if we look at in, that is coming from global volume. So the main volume is coming out of here and going to both in A and in C, I think that'll be, because it's on the next line down. And then basically they're being modulated. The volume's going in and it's being modulated with these LFOs, which is then getting sent out to... we've got pan in there, and then we've also, on the second one, we've got reverb as well. So basically what these LFOs are doing is taking the signal, sending it to these places, but it's carrying this modulation with it as well. So we're getting some modulation on the panning, and we're also getting some volume modulation going on the reverb. So With these voltage processors, like I said, you're getting a bit of modulation on the panning, so you can hear that. And also the reverb coming up. So if we change the frequency of these LFOs, so that's quite cool. I mean, you could play around with that, modulate them in a track and bring them in and out. So that's how we're getting a lot of movement in the patch. And then the next bit we're going to look at is the effects section, because we've not covered that yet. So we've got chorus, and then we've also got this delay as well. So for me, that's just adding like more stereo width. It sounds quite subtle, but it's definitely adding some width there. So that's pretty much it for this patch. Really nice kind of pad sound with a lot of movement going on, making use of this section here. So I thought that was a really good one to show you, to get your head around how this works. And that pretty much brings me to the end of this little series this week. Let me know if you've enjoyed them. Let me know if you're getting to grips with this synth now. And if you've already bought the pack and tested it out, have you been writing tracks with it? Let us know that in the comments. If you've got any questions about anything shown here, also just ask them in the comment section. My name's James Orvis. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.